Has the universe always existed, or has it had a beginning? In other words, is the universe infinite or finite? That's a very important question when it comes to the origins debate, because the whole question of origins hinges on the nature of the universe. If the universe is proven to be infinite, then the universe itself is the final reality. We need not for anything beyond the cosmos. The universe itself, the final ultimate reality. But if the universe, on the other hand, is finite, then we should look for a cause, because everything finite needs a cause. And so the question of origins boils down to this one important question about the nature of the universe, whether the universe is or infinite. And this question of origins has been debated almost from the beginning of human history. Before Christ, or before the Common Era, there had been many people who had put forward cyclical views of the universe. The idea was that the universe just goes on and on with no beginning and no end. So if there's no beginning and no end, the universe becomes infinite. And if the universe is infinite, the question of something beyond this, bringing it to existence, simply does not arise. But then there have also been many who have been arguing for the finitude of the universe, that the universe is finite. And if the universe is truly finite, then reason, common sense, and common human experience makes us look for a cause behind cosmos. So, has the universe always been in existence, or has it had a beginning? If the universe is beginning, who or what caused the beginning are profoundly important questions, because these are worldview questions, questions pertaining to worldviews. What is a worldview? A worldview is comparable to a pair of glasses, but not physical glasses, but intellectual glasses. So a worldview is like a pair of intellectual glasses through which we look at the universe, try to make sense of it. We look at the universe and try to interpret the data of the universe. And we try to look at the universe and understand it, and try to make sense of our life in the universe. In simple terms, a worldview is a person's or a group's or community's view of the universe and of life in the universe. And every person, knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously, would have a worldview. And sometimes it could be a mixture of different worldviews. But there is no one who does a worldview. And a worldview, in some other ways, can be explained as a set of positions. So it's a worldview question, and everybody has a worldview, and there are many worldviews, and sometimes some people hold a mixture of different worldviews without their knowledge. But one of them would be a dominant worldview. And worldviews are important because the worldview determines the way a person lives, or a community lives, or people live. Worldview determines the way of life. There's no exaggeration in saying that. The inner conviction determine the conduct of a person. The beliefs of a person that we can't see, they're like the roots, produce the behavior. They're like the fruit. And so it's important for us to know what worldview we are holding on, what worldview we are believing in. Because the questions that any given worldview raises and tries to address are questions that matter, and questions that matter most. There are four fundamental issues about which we all have questions. And those questions pertain to four important issues. Number one, the question of origin. Number two, the question of human life, its meaning. The question of morality, what's right, what's wrong, what's justice, what is injustice. And then the question of destiny or purpose. So the question of origin says, where have we come from? The question of where has the universe come from? Where have we come from? Then the question of morality. How do we determine what's right, what's wrong, what's justice, what's injustice? What to do, what not to do? How do we determine as to how we should treat, for example, fellow human beings? Should we treat them as equals? Or should we treat them as unequals? Man, these are all very important questions. And then the question concerning destiny. Is death my ultimate destiny? Is the tomb my final home? Or is there life beyond this life? The origins debate, which way to go? Was there a beginning at all? Or is the universe infinite and eternal? If there was a beginning, what or who caused? A personal or impersonal, a personal cause or an impersonal or power or principle? These are all very important questions. We all face these questions at some point or the other. And this is what I was saying. These are worldview questions. And I don't want to spend too much time. I have already explained what a worldview is. It's an explanation and interpretation of the world and an application of this view to life. So a person's view of the world and view for the world, view of the world and view of life in the world in simple terms. It provides a model of the world which guides the adherents in the world. It's an intellectual lens through which people view the reality. And as I use this analogy, a worldview is like a pair of intellectual glasses through which we see the world, reality, and interpret the data of the universe, and then try to make sense out of it, make sense of our life in it, our place in the universe, our purpose in the universe. And these are very important questions. At some point or the other, everybody would wonder as to why they are here, what they're here for, where they are headed. Why are worldviews important? As I have already mentioned, a worldview determines the way of life. A person's beliefs or set of belief system determines the behavior. A person's convictions determine the conduct. In other words, thinking and living And believing and behaving are inseparably connected. What we believe has consequences for how we live. Ideas have consequences for life. And I'd like to give this very familiar, well-known, historic evidence for what I'm saying, that ideas have consequences for life, for us and for others. What we believe determines how we behave. Our convictions determine our character and conduct. The roots determine the fruits. Roots are the beliefs. Fruits are the consequences of those beliefs that can be seen outside. Adolf Hitler. I don't know what comes to your minds when you think of Adolf Hitler, but the one thing that comes to my mind is the fact that he eliminated 12 million people, at least 120 lakh people, and then explaining why he did what he did in his own book, in his own words. He said this in Mein Kampf, pages 161 to 162. The stronger must dominate and not mate with the weaker, which would signify the sacrifice of its own higher nature. Only the born weakling can look upon this principle as cruel. And if he does it, it is merely because he is of a feebler nature and narrower mind. For if such a law did not direct the process of evolution, then the higher development of organic life would not be conceivable at all. If nature does not wish that weaker individuals should mate with the stronger, she wishes even less that a superior race should intermingle with an inferior one, because in such a case, all her efforts throughout hundreds of thousands of years to establish an evolutionary higher stage of being may thus be rendered futile. He thought the Aryan race was the superhuman race that evolution was trying to produce, and the purposes of evolution will be defeated if they mix with other inferior, weaker races. And so he determined to eliminate. So ideas have terrible consequences, not just for the individual who believes in those ideas, holds those views about the world, but for others, because we are interconnected. Why are worldviews important? Let me answer it in a slightly different way. Worldviews are important because they form the basic interpretative framework that we use to analyze data of the universe. The worldview determines the way individuals and cultures and communities and nations live. It is important to have the right or best worldview that we might follow the right or best way of living. Otherwise, we would mess up our lives, and we will mess up the lives of others. And when I use these words, you're familiar with so many people who are messing up themselves and messing up the lives of other people. So there are 6 important worldview questions. Number 1, why is there something rather than nothing? Number 2, how do you explain human nature? Number 3, what happens to a person at death? What's the destiny? Does death bring the person's existence to an end? Or is there something that survives death and lives beyond death in us, about us? How do you determine what's right, what's wrong, what's justice, what's injustice? How do you know that you know? And how do you know what you know? How do you gain knowledge? And then, what is the meaning of history? Is it linear? Is it cyclical? Is it helical? Is there a goal to history? Is there a purpose with which somebody is guiding the history? Or is it goalless, aimless, purposeless? Important questions, very important. So as I said, all these 6 questions can be actually summarized into 4 categories and 4 straightforward questions. The question of origins: where have I or we come from? That's the ultimate question of origin. But other than that, earlier I raised the question of the origin of the universe. Where has the universe come from? Where have other living entities have come from? Where have we come from? Meaning, why am I here? Why are we here? What's the purpose of life? What should I be doing with myself, with my life, with my body, with my mind, with my money? with my family, with my relatives, with my friends? Meaning. What makes life purposeful and meaningful? Or has life no meaning, no purpose? Morality. How do we choose between right and wrong, justice and injustice, good and bad, beautiful and ugly, and so on and so forth? Questions of value. Then the question of destiny, the ultimate question. Where do I go from here? Where do we go from here? Is death the ultimate destiny? Is the tomb my final home? And if death is the ultimate destiny, why on earth should we strive and struggle and go through the pains of life and live it? Why don't we die it? Why do we have a desire to live and live on and on and on? Why are people willing to spend 50 lakhs to get their beloved ones treated for COVID and post-COVID complications? When we see so many people spending that much money and coming out of the hospital only with the dead body of the dear one. Why is there a longing to live? If death is our ultimate destiny, these are powerful questions. For some time in life, you may not think about these, but at some point or the other, believe me, research has shown, sociological, psychological, philosophical, and existential research has time and again confirmed that every single person at some point or the other in his or her life struggles with these questions of origin, with these questions of meaning, with these questions of morality, and ultimately destiny. And so the question of origins is a very important question, because that one question determines how we answer the other questions. Because all those questions are actually inseparably linked, interconnected. And then you will soon realize one important thing, as Archbishop William Temple had once pointed out. The idea of God is a central theme, the most important theme when it comes to worldviews. Every single worldview has something or the other to say about God. And so, when it comes to worldviews, the idea of God, the concept of God is the most important one, is the most central one. But what kind of idea of God we have, what kind of concept of God we have and we believe in, that is very important. William Temple says, if your concept of God is wrong, the more religious you get, the more dangerous you become to yourself and others. That's what we see happening with so many people all over the globe in different religions and religious sects. The most important thing about a person, it's again proven through research of different kinds. The most important thing about a person is what that person thinks and believes about God. You don't realize it, but you will realize it very soon in life. How many worldviews are there? There are 7. Theism, atheism, pantheism, polytheism, deism, finite godism, and panentheism. Some of them are tongue twisters for you. You're maybe hearing for the first time. You need not worry about, let's say, panentheism, for example. But theism, in one word, one infinite God exists. And the answer to the question of origins is this one infinite God caused the universe to come into existence. So that means the creation is not infinite. The universe is not infinite. It's finite. And the finite reality of the universe was brought into existence by the infinite reality of God. Atheism, A means no, theos means God. So this is no God-ism. There's no God. Only matter exists. Only universe exists. Only everything is physical, and so on and so forth. Pantheism. Pan means everything. Theos means God. Everything is Godism. It's in other words, in Indian language, Sanskrit, called Advaita. No two realities. Ultimately, only one reality. And I'll explain this a little bit more. But polytheism, multiple godsism, many godsism. Poly means many, theos means God, many godsism. Deism, or deism, absentee Godism. God is there, but this God is absent from the created reality. God has gone on a long holiday. Nobody knows where, nobody knows when this God will come back and intervene in the affairs of the universe. So for now, you have to fend for yourself. You have to fight your battles. You have to create meaning for yourself. You have to wait to know if there is any purpose in life or not, if there is any final goal or not. Finite Godism. Well, there is a God, but this poor God is finite, limited. And that very idea of a finite God is a contradiction in terms, conundrum. I'll explain that as well. And then panentheism, don't worry about it. So there are 7 worldviews in all. Some of them are very, very minor. And in few minutes, you can actually logically, scientifically, commonsensically, and existentially show that they have no legs to stand on. This is polytheism. Here in this pictorial representation, the globe is the universe and the hand represents God. So the globe is bigger, hands are smaller, and many hands. So that means polytheism, many godsism says there's more than one God in the universe. But these gods are finite and personal. Personal means, it does not mean my personal God, your personal God. No. When I use the word personal here, it means God with a personality, not just a power or force or a principle, but a person. That's the meaning of the word personal. There's a problem with this. God, by definition, has to be infinite. You go to Oxford, you go to Cambridge dictionary or any standard dictionary, you will find the meaning of the word God. The creator of all things. That's one fundamental meaning of God. And if God is the creator of all reality, then God must be beyond this created reality and must be greater than, prior than. And not just that, God must be infinite, because if this God that we are talking about is just a little bigger, more powerful than this cosmos, then that God becomes finite. And then we should look for another God, another God, another God, and you should go backwards infinitely. And going backwards infinitely is nonsensical, philosophically, scientifically not possible. That's what we call infinite regress, going backwards infinitely. And if the past is infinite, you could never have come to an actual present. But we are living in an actual present. We are counting time. I can say today I'm 60 years old. From when? From the day I was born. The universe now is estimated to be about 13.8 to 13.7 billion years old, according to science. 13.7 is not infinite. So the reality is that God by definition is infinite. And so talking about a finite God and finite gods is contradictory. You know, it's like talking about a four-sided triangle or a two-sided triangle. If you know what a triangle is, you will never talk about anything other than a three-sided, three-angled structure. The sum of the three angles should be so and so degrees. I think it's 180 if I still remember correctly. That's triangle. So every word has its proper meaning. So the word God has its proper meaning. God by definition has to be infinite. And so this polytheism of the Hindu kind or Roman kind or Greek kind, there have been many polytheisms in the history of humanity and in different civilizations. It's just unthinkable for many gods to exist and for God to be finite. It necessitates ultimate monotheism. That's why they say, no, these gods are manifestation of one final God. So they can't stand on polytheism. Sooner or later, they take a step back and say, well, we believe there's only one God, but that God manifests itself or himself or herself in many different forms. Well, if that is the case, then God is one. So you're collapsing into monotheism. Or sometimes they say nature is the ultimate reality because these gods and goddesses are actually forces of nature that got deified. Agni, Vayu, Indra, Varuna. What are these? Natural forces that people could not control, that people could not think of managing. And so they said, this must be God, this must be God, this must be God. Sun became God like that. So these are all natural forces. So where have these gods come from? From nature. Can they overcome nature? No. Can they solve our problems within nature? No. So polytheism either collapses into monotheism on one hand or collapses into atheism or naturalism on the other hand. So very quickly, you can see that logically, scientifically, existentially, and in any other way, these worldviews can't stand. Then pantheism, Advaita, Vedanta. God is all and all is God. God and the universe, not different. It's the same. So that's why you don't see a separate globe and a separate hand. It's all one. Ekam, Evam, Sarvam, Kalvidam, Brahman. I'm not angry with anybody. I'm not scolding anybody. I'm just saying a Sanskrit slok. Ekam, Evam, all is one. Sarvam, Kalvidam, Brahman. All that exists is Brahman, the ultimate reality, God. Ekam, Evam, Sarvam, Kalvidam, Brahman. Jivo Brahmaiva na parah. This Jiva is Brahman. I'm Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I'm God. You're God because only God exists. Jagam Midhya Brahma Satyam. Sisha. Jagam Midhya, the world is Maya, illusion. Only Brahman is real. God is infinite and impersonal or non-personal. And there's a serious problem. If God is impersonal, how can personal entities like you and me come from the impersonal, non-personal reality? Because this universe is supposed to be an extension of Brahman. Like the cob and cobweb. Just as the cobweb comes from the spider, the creation just flows out of Brahman, but not really there. It appears to be real. So ultimately, only Brahman, God, is real. Everything else is Maya, Mithya, or non-real. But the problem with this is, if everything is Maya, only Brahman exists, what about marriage? Who is wife? Who is husband? Who are parents? Who are children? What is copper? What is sulfate? To form copper sulfate. You don't have a foundation for science. You don't have a foundation for life. You know in front of you that you and your wife are not the same. Your wife and yourself are not the same. You both and your children are not the same. The computer I'm using and I am not the same. The shirt I'm wearing is different from myself. Common sense tells us. So Advaita Vedanta or pantheism can't be true, can't be accepted. On the basis of simple reasoning, commonsensical thinking, and common human experience. So everything is one, ekam evam. If that is the truth, then who is seated upon and who is sitting? I think I know I'm sitting and the chair is being sat upon. I'm getting into some philosophical ways of talking, but I hope you're able to follow me. I'm talking and, you are listening. So I'm the subject, you are the object. I'm the sender of the message, you are the receivers. So for language to be real, two realities must be there. So if all is one, how come we're experiencing multiple realities? Language itself can't stand if all is one. Because a meaningful sentence requires a subject and an object. So if there is no subject, if there is no object, no language. No communication. But we keep communicating all the time. So, I'm just quickly showing to you how this is not deism, absentee Godism. God is one, infinite and personal, like the God of theism, but beyond the world, never manifests himself in the world. So God is so totally transcendent over creation that God is not immanent. A God who creates a cosmos, God who is a person, must create the universe with a purpose. And if he created the cosmos with a purpose, then what is the purpose? How is he getting it accomplished if he's not involved? So this kind of an idea of an absentee God brings under question the very concept of God. So that's why not many actually in today's world are deists. You hardly find deists now. Then finite Godism. This also is a historical thing. See, God is poor, small entity, and the globe is too big. And how on earth do you think this little hand can be carrying the globe? And in the first place, a little thing like this small hand could have created this gigantic universe. So a finite God is a conundrum, contradiction in terms. As I have already said, God must be by definition infinite. God must be the creator God. One infinite creator God alone can be the creator. So finite Godism fails at the very superficial level. Then this is theism, mighty hand. Here we are showing it in a limited way, but there's no limit to this hand because this is infinite creator God and the creation. There's one infinite personal, having personality kind of God, both in the world, immanent, and beyond the world, transcendent. God is involved, but God is not the same as the world because the cause and the effect can never be the same. The creator and the creation can never be the same. That's common sense. That's scientific. That's philosophically inescapable. So God has to be infinite. And I'll show why God has to be personal. And God has to have connection with the universe, but God can't be limited to the universe because a God who is limited to the universe cannot control the universe, run the universe, and solve problems if problems arise. So that is theism. And the final one, atheism. The world is, but God is not. Reality of the world is affirmed. Matter was, matter is, and matter will be is their creed. All that is material, that is materialism, or physicalism, or naturalism. There's nothing beyond nature. There's nothing supernatural. And how do you know God doesn't exist? Well, they will tell you, I know everything about the universe and about what lies beyond the universe to tell you that there's no God who knows everything. That's the kind of contradiction that they get caught in. If you say, well, I can't see God here, maybe he's there in another planet or in another on another planet or in another constellation or something like that, that's admissible because we all know that we are finite. But you can't say there's no God of any kind anywhere, as the atheists say. For you to know everything about the entire universe and what lies beyond the universe, you must be that God whom you are trying to deny. So atheism gets caught in contradiction. And then if atheism is real, you're just your body and your brain. You have no mind. You have no soul. And if you have no soul, then your language should be changed immediately. You know why? If you are just your body and brain bouncing around in the empty space, and at death the molecular machine breaks down, as atheism would put it, then you can't say this is my hand. You should say this is I hand. You can't say this is my body. You should say this is I body. You can't say this is my eye. You should say this is I eye. Because you are your body. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. There is somebody more than the body who is possessing. This is my pen. So I am distinct from the pen. I'm owning the pen. So if I am owning my body, I'm not just my body. I'm more than my body at least. So language, any given language, would prove in a sense that we are not just bodies and brains bouncing around in empty space. We are more than that. So materialism, physicalism fails. The mind uses the brain, but the mind is real. Just as we use English letters to communicate. So message is communicated through English letters, but the message is from me. So the message and the letters are not the same. The message is communicated through the letters, through the words, through the sentences, through the paragraphs, and so on and so forth. So if there is a message, there has to be a messenger. If there's a mind, there should be a possessor of the mind. And we all have minds, and we possess our minds. We won't say, I am my mind, or I am my body, or I am my eye, or my hand. Doesn't make sense. So these are interconnected. The question of origin, meaning, morality, destiny, inseparably connected. What you think of the origins determines what you think of the other three things. And what you think about your origin determines your destiny. So origin and destiny are connected. So also origin and meaning or purpose are connected. So the question of origin is very important because every other question gets affected by it. So the question of the origin can be raised at three different levels: origin of the universe, origin of life, and origin of new forms of life, or origin of human beings. In simple terms, where has the universe come from, and where have I or we come from? And that determines where we will go, what will be our destiny. So we'll focus only on the origin of the universe in the next few minutes, and then I will give you time for questions. We've lost, unfortunately, some time, but I won't take too much of extra time. I will finish in the next few minutes, and then I'll give you time. So ultimately, as I have shown, other worldviews don't have legs to stand on. But there are two that remain: theism and atheism. So when it comes to the question of the origin of the universe, and ultimately origin of life and new forms of life and origin of humanity, the two worldviews, philosophies that compete, collide head-on, are theism and atheism. So we only have two to choose between. Is it this or that? Which way should we go? Well, let's see where the evidence leads. Origin of the universe. The question is there a primary cause? And as I told you already, that question gets translated into a related, slightly different question. Is the universe infinite or finite? If the universe is infinite, it becomes eternal. That means the universe has existed forever, no beginning, no end. And if there's no beginning, we can't ask about the beginning. That means the universe is the ultimate reality, nothing beyond the universe. But if it's finite, then it must have had a beginning. And if there was a beginning, who or what caused the beginning becomes the next logical question. So the question of the origin of the universe boils down to this one question: is it finite or infinite? As I have already explained. And here you can see graphically represented. And I am presenting my argument as a theist. When I was young, I had tendencies to be atheistic and to argue. I tried to live with no belief in God, no relationship with God. But that led me to frustration, dejection, depression. and I finally decided to end my life. But then something dramatic had happened. 46 years after that, I'm still living. And that question of why I'm living today is connected to this question of the origin and the originator. If there is an origin and if there is an originator, or if the universe itself is the ultimate reality. So here is my theistic argument. Number one, premise: everything finite needs a cause. You can't deny it. Nobody can deny it. Whole of the scientific enterprise is built on it. And you see it day in and day out. Those who study, they pass. And those who study hard, they not just pass, but pass with good grades and good knowledge. They face interviews, they get jobs. Those who don't study, of course, there are exceptions. They can, through corrupt means, get into some jobs and stuff like that. But that is not the rule. That is exception. So everything finite needs a cause. If there is a book, there has to be an author. If there's a paper, the producer of the paper. If there is an artist, poem, poet or poetess. So everything finite needs a cause. The universe is finite. That's my conclusion. That's my premise number two. So if everything is finite and everything finite needs a cause, if the universe is finite, then the universe needs a cause. And that cause should be separate from the effect, the universe. So premise number one, indisputable. Nobody can question it. Premise number two needs to be proven. And if I prove premise number two to be true, then my argument stands. My conclusion cannot be questioned, cannot be challenged. It has to be accepted scientifically, logically, commonsensically. So, do we have evidence to prove that the universe is finite? Plenty. Let me give you some. Fact number one. If the universe is infinite, as some atheists and naturalists and others try to present it to be, it could not run out of energy. But the universe is running out of energy. That's what second law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy, is showing. And it's a proven. We have tried all through our history to create perpetual machines, but we have not been able to. And it's not possible, because in any energy to energy conversion or matter to energy conversion, there is a loss. And that cannot be recaptured, reused. So the amount of useful energy is decreasing. The amount of useless energy is increasing. That's why we say entropy is increasing. So the second law of thermodynamics proves, with no basis to deny, that the universe is finite, limited. Because infinity minus anything is infinity. Infinity plus anything is still infinity. So real decrease or increase, as the second law of thermodynamics has proven, is not possible if the universe were to be infinite. So no question, no argument against this. It's proven time and again. It's a law. It's not a hypothesis, not a theory. So the universe is fine. And then the fact number two, the universe is expanding in all directions. And Wilson and his colleague were given Nobel Prize in physics for this discovery in 1978. All right. So the universe is expanding in all directions. And the fact of redshift phenomena proves it. And then fact number three, radiation echo, cosmic microwave background radiation. The Kobe satellite captured this radiation echo or cosmic microwave background radiation. What is it? This is it. This is not an imaginary thing. It's a real picture of the Milky Way galaxy from the lateral side, sent to us by the Kobe satellite. What do we see? The red band, the ripples from the Big Bang. seen here on either side of the plane of the Milky Way galaxy, which is our galaxy, which is the bright horizontal band along the center. This microwave map is a snapshot of the creation event, showing radiation which has been traveling for more than 14 or closely 14 billion years. Does our existence depend on a crucial one proton excess 15 billion years ago? That's the question scientists are raising. They can't escape this. And even atheistic scientists, agnostic scientists who were confronted by this evidence, they had to admit that the universe is finite. And these are the different images of the cosmic microwave background radiation. The universe is bathed in this faint glow that is still there very faintly. So, what's the conclusion? Based on the foregone analysis of the evidence from science and common sense and philosophy, the laws of thermodynamics, Einstein's theory of relativity, and the Big Bang theory, they all supported by facts, evidence, like the redshift phenomenon, the expanding universe, the cosmic microwave background radiation, they confirm the fact that the universe is finite. The law of causality demands that we should look for a cause behind the universe. The universe had a beginning. The universe's beginning must have been caused. The cause must be infinite and intelligent and therefore personal, because the universe is intelligible. The universe is full of design, and designing capacity is an expression of intelligence. No brute force, no brute power can produce intelligible reality. So, intelligence is the property of a person, not a power or a force or a principle. So God, the cause behind the cosmos, must be an infinite, intelligent cause, distinct from the effect, the cosmos. And that God, even now, sustains the cosmos. That's why it is still alive in spite of all the messing up that we are doing by not following what we already know. Too much of flooding. Europe, flooding causing deaths. America, afraid, West Coast. Canada, West Coast, afraid of the rising temperatures. Wildfires might. Why? Everybody is talking about climate change. And who is responsible? We are responsible. But somehow, God still manages things out. And so, the question of origins cannot be settled without God. And let me just show you a few testimonies, maybe just 2 or 3. I have much more, but maybe for another time, let me show you how agnostic scientists, atheist scientists are admitting that this is inescapable. This conclusion is inescapable. They are forced to admit. Look at this man, Arno A. Penzias, Nobel Prize winner in physics, 1978. Agnostic, not a Christian, not a theist, but his scientific research is forcing him to make this confession. Astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing and a delicately balanced to provide exactly the conditions required to support life. The observations of modern science seem to suggest an underlying, and one might say supernatural plan behind the cosmos. Greenstein. Is it possible that suddenly, without intending to, we have stumbled upon scientific proof of the existence of a supreme being? Was it God who stepped in and so providentially crafted the cosmos for our benefit? Einstein himself tried his best to live as an atheist, but in moments of honesty, his own scientific research forced him to admit the possibility of God. In his own biography, The Life and Times, Einstein, The Life and Times, written by Clark, here is a direct statement of Einstein. I read this book myself. I want to know how God created this world. I'm not interested in this or that phenomenon, in the spectrum of this or that element. I want to know his thoughts. The rest are details. And another statement by Einstein reported in the CSIR published the Science Reporter magazine from India. When I was still teaching in Wesley Degree College, I came across in that Science Reporter. I have no special gift. I'm only passionately curious. My religion consists of an humble admiration of the illimitable superior spirit who reveals himself in the slight details we are able to perceive with our frail and feeble minds. God is subtle, but not malicious. Einstein, an atheist, forced by the power of his own scientific research and findings, had to make this confession and admit. So we can just go on, and I have many more scientists. I want to conclude with this. Hugh Ross, an astrophysicist, in his book, The Creator and the Cosmos, says this: with dramatic proof of the hot Big Bang creation event in hand, many astronomers have become willing to declare the implication of the proof, the existence of the Creator God. And unless we have a personal relationship with this Creator God, we will never find meaning and purpose in life. We will never be able to come to definite conclusions about what's right, what's wrong, what's justice, what's injustice. God, the Creator, should be the center of our lives. And this God traversed time and space, entered into time and space from outside the time and space universe to reveal himself to us in history. And we can know God personally. Knowing about God is of no use. We all know about our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. But when we need, we can't pick up a phone and give a ring and say, Mr. Modi, I need this help. Would you please ask some of your people to do it for me? No. You can write volumes about Narendra Modi after doing research and all that. But if you don't know him, or anybody for that matter personally, that doesn't make any difference. That's why there is a longing in our hearts to know. That's why the great philosopher and mathematician Pascal once said, there is a God-shaped vacuum in every human heart, which only God can fill. And so without God, we have no peace, no purpose, no meaning, no joy, and our destiny will be away from God. That's what religious literature calls hell. But if we have a relationship with God in this life, then our destiny will be life everlasting in his presence with God forever and ever. And religious literature calls it heaven. So your destiny cannot be death. Your final home cannot be the tomb. We have a destiny beyond that with God forever and ever. But that can never be ours unless we find our Creator and enter into a personal relationship with him. That's what had happened 46 years ago in my life. That's why I'm still living. Otherwise, the world would never have come to know of this person called Sudhakar Mondithoka. I'm living because I entered into a personal relationship with the living God, the Creator God. I'm so thankful for that. So sorry about the loss of time and taking a little extra time, but now I'm done. May God help you to know him personally.